Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. So heading out to the reloading bench. So hang on 2 seconds. Today's topic, this place is a mess, but today's topic, it's really, check out this deep freeze I got, by the way. Had to get that because I didn't have anywhere to store that buck that my wife killed. I'm gonna have a shoulder mount done on it. So that's the head and the cape down there. But I didn't have anywhere to put it. Didn't have enough room in my freezer. It won't fit in my freezer. But so I just ran to Lowe's, picked one up. Gotta get my Harbor Freight drop light. That thing's pretty handy, by the way. Get that sucker turned on and going. But well, so today's video is gonna be the title of the video, the top 3 things to consider before you start reloading, right? Or at least hopefully I'll remember to make that the title when I go and upload this to YouTube. But I really wanted to sort of focus more on, it's a thought process, right? And there's a lot of people out there that are either brand new to reloading, or maybe you've dabbled in it a little bit here and there, and whatever the case may be, or maybe you're an experienced reloader, right? But I think there's 3 keys or 3 items that really, before you want to get into reloading, or even if you are reloading, there's 3 things that you need to think about and kind of focus or come up with an answer. In my opinion, you need to come up with an answer to each one of these 3 items, because it'll help guide you on, the direction that you need to go when it comes to reloading. So let's see here. This is, I think it's 6.5 Creedmoor. It is Lapua 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm planning on working up some stuff with Vihtavuori N555, so that's why all this stuff's been cleaned. Now I just gotta size it and then run it over on my brass prep station, but the Lyman Case Prep Express. But those 3 things that you need to think about as a reloader are, and I'll kind of start this off by, the number 1 thing that you should think about, or the number 1 item to consider before reloading or while you're reloading, or how, whatever, is you have to start with the end in mind, right? And you may be saying to yourself, well, what in the world does that even mean? Well, what that means is, what are you trying to accomplish by getting into reloading? You're sitting there, maybe you're one of these people that you did the whole panic buying thing, right? Pandemic showed up, global supply chain went to crap, and you're sitting there going, man, I can't find ammo. I found this reloading kit, so I just bought it. Didn't know what I was buying, but I just bought it. Now component availability is kind of getting a little bit better, right? So now might be the time that you're going, hey, I want to kind of start reloading. Well, the first thing you need to do, and in my opinion, the most important thing you need to do, is what are you trying to accomplish by reloading? And that's going to be different for every single person, right? There might be a common thread, from person to person about why you're getting into reloading. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very unique and individualized to your specific situation. Now, for me, when I first got into reloading, I didn't think about that. I had no clue what I wanted to do or what I wanted to accomplish by reloading. I just started. I just went and bought a bunch of stuff. I was buying anything I could and just reloading. It was, I bought, I think the first press I bought was a Lee Breech Lock Challenger press. I think I bought the kit off Amazon. It was like the anniversary kit or something like that. I bought that. My brother got me into it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. I don't want to drop a bunch of money, so I'll just go the cheap route, and I bought that kit. And it did a good job, but I learned very quickly that I need to identify what am I trying to accomplish, within this thing called reloading. What are the results that I'm trying to achieve? And for you, it might, maybe you want to get into a competition setup, right? Maybe that's your thing. You want to go shoot PRS, or you want to go shoot F class or bench rest or whatever. Maybe that's what you want to do. You want to compete. That is what you desire to do. I can go ahead and tell you, you probably just want to stop watching my channel altogether. That is not something that I desire to do. So a lot of the stuff that I do is, in my opinion, it's not very applicable to that world, right? Because you're talking about custom rigs and you're going down a pretty deep rabbit hole when you dive off into the competition world of things. And so if you want to do that, then you're better served by watching some of those guys like F Class John, or I think, is it Winning in the Wind or something like that, another channel. Those guys that actually compete, right, and compete at a high level. The types, the type of reloading they do, the types of equipment that they purchase, and the things they think about and consider and all that. So that's definitely one side of this. Or are you just a high volume shooter? You're the type of person, you've got an AR and you just want to go do mag dumps at the range, right? You just want to go burn through some 223 ammo or some 9mm ammo. You just want to, it's just fun, right? That's what you want to do. And it kind of ties into, like, maybe you're more of a prepper, right? It's a bad word. That's a bad word. You're not supposed to say that, but maybe that's what you enjoy, right? Maybe you just enjoy stockpiling ammo and having it on hand for whatever reason, right? And so that will guide, your purchase decision, or how you want to set things up and the type of equipment that you're going to purchase and all of that. Or are you somebody possibly like myself, who you're just looking to create some really good hunting ammunition, so that way when you step into the woods, or if a family member, or friend or whatever, if you work up a load for somebody, they go into the woods, they have supreme confidence in their setup, knowing that, hey, this bullet's going to go exactly where I put the crosshairs. If I do everything on my part, the animal that I'm hunting, it's going to be killed ethically and all that. So you have to establish, what are your parameters for success? What does that look like? Is it groups that are one MOA? Are you getting a custom rig built and you're not going to be happy unless it's, you're averaging quarter MOA, right? I mean, it's individualized at that point. That's the part that you really need to focus in on, and just be honest with yourself on what are you really trying to achieve, because you can just get lost in this hobby, right? Because for me, it's a hobby. That's all it is. This is just a hobby, and I love this hobby. It's so much fun, and I really enjoy. For me, I just really enjoy tinkering with stuff, right? With different brass, different bullets, different powder, different primers, different equipment. This mech press. I love this press, but this is, I think, maybe the fourth or fifth press I've owned. I mean, yeah, I enjoy the process of reloading. And so for me, it's more about dialing in really good hunting ammunition. So for you, it could be completely different. But in my opinion, that's the most important thing that you need to get right up front, or at least have a good understanding of what you want to do, how you want to go about doing it, what you want to accomplish, the end result that you're desiring to achieve, right? Because from that point, you can start to make decisions on which lead right into number 2 and number 3. The second most critical thing that you're going to want to think about getting into this hobby is time. How much time do you actually have to dedicate to this? Because it is time consuming. For me, I mean, you see my setup, right? It's a single stage press. So there's a lot of prep work that goes into the brass. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That's the worst part of reloading, is the brass prep. There's several steps involved. It's tedious. It's time consuming. It just is what it is. And then you go to clean your brass, and then if you anneal your brass, and there's all these steps, and you chamfer, deburr, clean the primer pockets, right? You trim them. all of that stuff, right? After you size them and you name it, like there's so many steps to get to the point where you're ready to put a primer in, powder in, seat a bullet, and then go to the range, right? So you have to be real about, okay, what does my time allocation look like? Because if you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to this, it can kind of get overwhelming, and you can load up a few rounds and go to the range. Man, that was awesome to shoot my own reloads and see how they worked and all that. Well, then you come back and life kind of hits you, and you're busy with work, and maybe you got to travel, and maybe you got a lot of stuff going on personally. You never have time for it, right? It always seems like any amount of free time you might have ends up getting allocated to something else that's maybe more of a priority. So, and then it can kind of be a little bit frustrating, and then you're like, you know what, I'm just going to buy factory ammo, put this reloading stuff on the back burner, let me just upload it to, wherever in arms list, and just try to dump it and get rid of it, try to get my money back. So you have to be thoughtful in that approach, or in that area, and just say, how much time do I legitimately have that I can dedicate to this, because it is a time consuming hobby. So first one, right, most importantly, is what are you trying to achieve? Second one, how much time do you have to actually do it? And the third one is, how much space do you have to operate in? I feel like those are the top three things that you need to think about before you do anything else. Budget, in my opinion, is obviously the higher the number, right? The more zeros you tack on, more commas you tack on to your budget, the better the equipment that you can purchase. Well, that's great. But if you don't have anywhere to put that equipment, then what difference does it make, right? So, and if you don't have any time to spend with that equipment, again, it doesn't matter what your budget looks like. If you don't, and again, you can buy the wrong equipment for what you're trying to do. If you want to compete, but you go out and you buy a Lee breech lock single stage press, I'm not saying it's the wrong equipment. I'm just saying, if you want to compete, you're better off saving up your money and just going ahead up front and buy the best of the best that you can possibly afford. So it's space is the number 3 item in my top 3 list of things to think about. Because for me, I'm very fortunate, even though this, my building is an absolute disaster and it's pretty messy. I mean, I've got plenty of space to store bullets, dies, brass, reloading manuals. My bench is an absolute nightmare in terms of organization, not organized at all. But it's okay. It'll be all right. I've got plenty of space where I can spread all this stuff out if I want to. There's no space restrictions. And it wasn't always that way, because when I first started reloading, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I didn't have anywhere to reload except for my kitchen. So my reloading setup was much smaller than this. I'm talking, it was on maybe, from this little outlet receptacle thing here. I mean, it was maybe 2.5 feet wide, right? The little bench that I had, a little table that I had to reload on in my dining room. So I just had my little single stage press. I had my little powder measure, my little Lee powder measure right next to it. I was using the hand tools for brass prep. I didn't have any space, to really get all of the equipment that I have now. That space didn't exist. So that's probably the third thing that before you get into this, or if you are into it and maybe you've started to acquire some of this stuff, that's really what you need to do, is take a step back and go, okay, what am I trying to achieve, right? What's the desired result? How much time can I actually allocate to this hobby? And third, do I even have space to get the equipment that I want to get, right? And set everything up in a way where I'll be happy with the flow of the process. Because that's the thing too. You're going to get into a rhythm, and you're going to figure out what works best for you within your space limitations, or whatever you got going on. Maybe you're like me and you got a detached building and you've got plenty of space and you could just set stuff up wherever. But there is an order of operations that you'll typically go through, and for each person it might be different. But you're going to set things up according to your workflow, right? So those, you know, they seem very simple, but you ought to take a little bit of time to think about each one of those in detail, right? Take a little bit of time to really think about, you know, because for me, I kept going back and forth. I was like, oh, you know, I want to create some really good hunting ammo, but then I'd find myself buying a bunch of match bullets and, you know, chasing accuracy in a hunting rifle, right? But I'm shooting match bullets. I'm like, what do I even care? What difference does that make? I don't care about that. This is a hunting rifle that will be used for hunting purposes. So it just, you just don't need to chase your tail, you know, going off down a rabbit hole that you really don't need to go down. So, you know, that's pretty much it. This is just, it was a talking video today, really nothing too profound, right? I think I've done this type of video in the past, but I just wanted to kind of bring that home, bring it back to the forefront, right? Upload a new one with my thoughts on this, and just kind of put it out there. Be like, hey, because I know a lot of people might be new. I've had some people comment recently on the channel where they're new, getting into reloading. Well, these are the three things, in my opinion, that you need to focus on and come up with a really good answer on it. You know, what are you trying to achieve? How much time do you have to spend on it? And then what's your space constraints looking like? And then after that, then you go into the budget, right? Because that's going to help, your space will help determine, okay, I've got a pretty healthy budget for equipment, right? So now let me really dial in, you know, the right type of equipment that I need for the space that I have, for what I can afford, for what I'm trying to achieve in terms of results with my ammunition. Definitely try to buy the best that you can afford. In my opinion, Lee makes wonderful stuff is very value conscious, and you can make really good ammunition using Lee products. I mean, you can look right here. I've got a ton of Lee die sets, and I've used a lot of Lee products over the years, and I've made very good ammunition with it. Hornady, same thing. Redding, same thing. RCBS, I mean, I've made good ammunition with all of it. In terms of presses, I've had the Lee Breechlock Challenger press. I've had a Redding Big Boss 2. I've had a Redding T7. I've had the Mech Marksman. I had the Frankfurt Arsenal Coax. Some of the best ammunition I've ever made was on the Redding Big Boss 2. Across the board, though, I've made really good ammunition on all of them. So, again, start with the end in mind. Figure out how much time you can spend on this hobby. What kind of space do you have? And then that'll help kind of guide you, you know, along with your budget, your budgetary constraints. That'll help guide you on the equipment you can purchase, that type of stuff. So, but that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, what do you think the top 3 things to consider are, as for somebody getting into reloading? I'd love to hear some feedback on this. This is just my opinion. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll catch y'all next time. Y'all have a good one.